Hello everyone and welcome to a book haul. I am very excited to share with you 10 books that I have gotten recently, and the first of those is A Song to Drown Rivers by Anne Liang. This is a book that is based on the Chinese myth of Cixi, one of the four great beauties of ancient China, and in this book we are following Cixi as she is navigating her life. She is in a town where it is expected for her to marry well, and because of her beauty, that is essentially her only role. But as she is going about her life, she attracts the attention of a general, Fan Li, and he influences her to essentially become a weapon and use her beauty for his purposes. And her goal is to woo the king and seduce him and take down the kingdom from within. The next book that I have for you is Phantasma by Kaylee Smith, and this book follows our main character Ophelia, and her mother has just been brutally murdered, and when her mother is murdered, she winds up being the inheritor of all of her mother's debts, and in order to pay off those debts, Ophelia's sister decides to join Phantasma and try to win the one wish that you get if you do win. And Ophelia is trying to save her sister, so she also joins Phantasma in her attempt to win the competition and save her sister and her family. The next book that I have for you guys is The Search for Wanla by Toni Ditterlitzy, and this book follows Eva 9 as her home is destroyed and the robot that has been taking care of her and Eva 9 herself go on an adventure to find other humans like her. She is the only human that she has ever known, but she does have a scrap of cardboard that gives her a clue. It says Wanla, and so that is who she is searching to find, and there is a bunch of adventures and a bunch of friendships, and yeah, I'm excited to get to this one soon. The next two books that I have are part of a duology, and that is Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I am currently in the middle of reading Ruthless Vows, but I have finished Divine Rivals, and I really enjoy this series. I think that it has a lot of high stakes. There is romance and magic and gods and goddesses and war and correspondence for newspapers, and it just is very fascinating. We are following our main character Iris, and she becomes a war correspondent and goes to the front lines of the war and is writing about her experiences there. And in the interim, there is magic that is in her typewriter, and she has been corresponding with someone else who owns another magical typewriter, and they are able to communicate with each other. Eventually, something blossoms between the two of them, and the story just kind of takes off from there. And I'm really excited to continue reading Ruthless Vows and see how the duology wraps up. The next book that I have for you is The Overstory by Richard Powers, and this book is very complicated to explain, so I'm just going to read the synopsis to you. It says, an Air Force loadmaster in the Vietnam War is shot out of the sky, then is saved by falling into a banyan. An artist inherits 100 years of photographic portraits, all of the same doomed American chestnut. A hard-partying undergraduate in the late 1980s electrocutes herself, dies, and is sent back into life by creatures of air and light. A hearing and speech-impaired scientist discovers that trees are communicating with one another. These 4 and 5 other strangers, each summoned in different ways by trees, are brought together in a last and violent stand to save the continent's few remaining acres of virgin forest. So, this sounds really interesting. I tend to really enjoy books that follow multiple points of views, and I feel like this is going to be very hard-hitting, and I'm excited to get to it soon. The next book that I have for you guys is I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Makkai, and this book follows our main character Bodhi as she is trying to let the past stay in the past. She had once gone to an elite boarding school, and her roommate Talia was murdered while she was there. The man who was suspected of the murder has been arrested and apprehended. When Bodhi is asked to go back to the school to teach a course, she is wondering if the person who is behind bars is actually the one who committed the crime. The next book that I have for you guys is Lightning Strike by William Kent Kruger, and this book follows a boy named Cork who's 12 years old, and he lives in the small town of Aurora, and his father Liam is the sheriff of that town. And one day Cork is wandering along and he notices that a man who he greatly revered is hanging from a tree dead, and it is his father's job to basically make sure that the death is actually a suicide and not something more sinister. And Cork and Liam both go and try to investigate this, and it is a father-son duo, and I am very intrigued to read this. The next book that I have for you guys is The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne, and this book follows our main character Cyril Avery, I believe. Yes, Cyril Avery, and he is essentially trying to figure out where he came from. He knows that he was born in Ireland to an unwed mother, and that is pretty much all he knows. And he has a wandering spirit and is trying to essentially just figure out life, and it is this journey of self-discovery, and I've heard that it's very, very hard-hitting. This is the same author who wrote The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, so I have full expectations that I will be sobbing during this book, but I am excited to get to it nonetheless. The next book that I have for you guys is Too Good to Be True by Carola Lovering, and this book follows Skye and her fiance Burke, and we discover that Skye has crippling OCD after the death of her mother, and so she is really excited to wedding plan and have something to look forward to in this engagement with Burke, but it turns out that Burke is not who he says he is, and there's a third perspective from the past that we get from Heather, who's trying to break up with Burke, and so I'm interested to see how this plays out. I'm not sure if we get Burke's point of view as well, but I am definitely intrigued to see how Skye gets out of this relationship. And that's it. Those are all of the books that I have hauled recently. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you guys have hauled any books in the comments below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!